Okay kids, we're going to start on section 4 here, and in section 4 we're going to be removing about 3 items. We're going to be removing the flywheel, we're going to be removing the front cover, and the camshaft from the inside of the flywheel. Okay. So the first thing we got to start with is removing the flywheel, and to remove the flywheel we can't use a traditional ratchet because as we would, the entire flywheel would rotate and we would never be able to get it off. So we have to use the impact wrench, okay, which is a high power tool. It's a power tool. We got to make sure we have our safety glasses, and we can go ahead and use the tool. Now, the impact tool, I don't remember if I used it in the first couple of sections, but we have to make sure that the impact tool is turned in the loosening position. So I'm going to take my socket off here, and I can consult Mr. or Mrs. Jug, and there's 2 positions, right? So there's tightening and loosening, right? That's how you switch it back and forth. Okay, so right now I'm going to turn it. Right now it's turning clockwise, and that means I'd be tightening the bolt. I don't want to tighten the bolt, I want to loosen the bolt. If I tighten a bolt that's already tight, I'm going to damage it. So tighten, put in loosen, confirm that it's loosening, and it is. Okay, here we go. So put the socket on there. I put the socket on the nut. I'm going to make a circle around the socket, not holding the socket, I'm making a circle around the socket because when it gets to the end, a lot of times these sockets want to fly away from the project, and the purpose of the circle around there is to contain it. There we go. A couple of quick little burps. One burp was pretty powerful. All right, there we go. We got our nut off. Now the gun, we're finished with the gun. We're not going to leave the gun on the bench, like so, attached to the airline. Somebody will walk by and trip over the airline and pull the gun and hit the floor. So we're going to make sure we disconnect the 2, okay? Put the line on the floor and return the line, and the gun is on the bench by itself. Okay, so we got the nut, we got the little piece of metal there, we got this piece of plastic, we got to be gentle with it. This is the little fan, and then we got the flywheel. The flywheel doesn't pop off. In order to get the flywheel off, we're going to have to use a puller, okay? And the puller, you got to be careful. Your teacher's going to help you with the puller. You got to be careful with the puller. When we put the puller around the flywheel, you see there's a magnet here on the flywheel, okay? It's a magnet. We don't want to pull on the magnet; it'll break off. It's just glued onto the flywheel. Okay? So we can turn the flywheel so the magnet's out of the way. I place my puller so it's grasping the back half of the flywheel. I got the flywheel, I'm going to tighten up my puller. I don't have to use a wrench here on this part. Tighten up the sides, tighten my hand. Now this part here, I'm going to have to tighten this with my ratchet. I know it's black, and we've been always taught that the black metal is impact metal, but you can't use an impact tool on this. You got to use a ratchet or a wrench. This here is imperial. It's not a metric size, so you got to make sure you use imperial. And the one that I'm using is 9/16 of an inch. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and tighten that. And as this bolt tightens against the crankshaft, it's pulling the flywheel away. Pop right off. Okay? I got my flywheel. I got my little fan, and I got my metal piece for the pull start. What am I going to do with my nut? I'm going to place it right back on the crankshaft where it belongs so I don't loosen it. Okay, what we're going to do now is we're going to remove what we call the front cover of the engine. And in behind the front cover here, we can access the crankshaft. We actually can pull the crankshaft out later if we need to and remove the camshaft. So it's held in place with these 6 bolts here. And again, we're going to take our ratchet, it's metric of course, and we're going to loosen all 6 in a crisscross pattern. Once you have all 6 loosened, you go ahead and remove those bolts. Now remember, we did drain the oil in the engine, but there's going to be a little bit of residual oil in the engine. We're not going to get all of it out, so a little bit's going to spill. You got to be prepared to clean up. A few rags maybe later on, and some paper towel or some used rags, and we got to dispose of them correctly and just dispose of them in the garbage. Look at this flammable. Okay, there we go. Bottom one is a little bit of a bugger. Okay, I got all my bolts out. I'm going to use a pry bar to pop it loose. I'm going to be careful. There's a gasket in between the two, and it's a paper gasket. So I'm going to place my pry bar here. There's some space here. I'm not going to manhandle it. Be gentle about it. Just kind of lean it out a little bit. You can see it's coming out. I can pull on the other side. Grab the ears of the cover, wiggle it, and take that piece of rubber off. And my keyway. Looks like the camshaft wants to come out with it. See the camshaft, paper gasket, camshaft came out. Camshaft was supposed to stay in there, but it came out on its own. There's the paper gasket. It seems to want to stick to the front cover. I'm going to let it stick to the front cover. I'm not going to take it off because it's not torn in any way, so I can reuse that gasket. Okay. Now, again, we got lots of pieces here. We got my keyway. I had a cover on the keyway. I'm going to place that back. I got all these bolts. I'm going to place them back into my my holes, so I remember where it all goes back together later on. Here's another dowel, and it looks like there was only one dowel. There's no dowels there. One dowel all the way around this front cover. Okay. Once you got all these bolts back in their proper location, you are finished this section. Actually, I did find one more dowel here, and we're going to try. I think it's up here in this spot here. Looks like right there. Put all these bolts back in their proper location. There we go. Okay, so I got my camshaft off. I got my front cover off. I got my flywheel off. And that's it, I think, for section 3. Let me just double check here. Now for section 3, yep, that's it. Congratulations, you're done section 4.